All right, and welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Instant Reaction Show. We are here on the court of Thompson-Boling Arena after a Tennessee basketball victory. Ryan Shumpert, my name is Rick Butler. Ryan, we are only about 3 days removed after Tennessee's first loss of the season to Colorado in just that second game, but they came out today. Man, did they handle business with a final score of 81-50 over Florida Gulf Coast University. How do you feel like the team responded in these 3 days to that loss?
I think well, and I think from everything you heard Rick Barnes say, from everything you heard the players say post-game, we talked to Jemima Meshach and Olivier Kamwa, it sounds like they responded well, and I thought Rick Barnes, he said it pretty well. He said, outside of our free throw percentage, which I think they shot around 67-68%, this was a really good performance from us, and I almost wouldn't have anything bad to say about it, and I think you saw certainly the defensive intensity that you come to expect with this Tennessee program that maybe wasn't there in the Colorado game. I think you saw Tennessee put an emphasis on getting to the basket more than they have early on in the season.
Agreed.
Three-point shot didn't fall the first couple games, and Barnes said that, and you saw that with the free throw numbers. Obviously, they didn't shoot them as well as they would like to, but I think they ended up shooting like 37 of them. And Julian Phillips, I think, shot 12. Kamwa shot 12. So there was a clear emphasis to get the ball to the basket if it wasn't necessarily down low with a back to the basket post game. So I think if you're Tennessee, you have to be very happy with what you saw in your response. And I think always important to keep in mind in these sorts of games, Tennessee wins by 31 tonight. That's right. My math there correct?
Yes, you're correct.
It was very basic.
81-50.
Yeah, it's very basic math. I still got to do. Hold out there. They're 21-point favorites. So I think that in these type of games, when you're playing mid-majors, you're playing low majors, I think the point spread of what's expected is kind of good to keep in mind. And I think Tennessee played 10 points above maybe what the expectation is. That kind of seemed to match with how the Vols performed tonight.
You just talked about how they responded on the court. It was also interesting to hear about how they responded off the court as well. Rick Barnes and Kamwa both said, hey, for us it was about the mentality throughout the week. It was about the focus coming in, the preparation for this game. Olivier Kamwa said it himself. He said, you know what, no matter who we're playing throughout the season, because some of these big SEC games, they're not going to be coming for a while, we cannot take any opponent lightly. I think Tennessee saw what happened last weekend when obviously they maybe didn't come into a game with the right focus or with the right preparation. But Olivier Kamwa said, hey, you know what, there wasn't a ton of panic. It's not like they needed a players-only meeting or anything like that. He said, hey, you know what, we just got back in the building, we went to work, we figured out how to kind of correct the mistakes, and then obviously that led to tonight's 31-point victory. Yeah, I mean,
Rick Barnes called it the cardinal sin of sports, taking your opponent lightly, and Kamwa said, it's a reminder that you have to show up every single time just because you have a good team, which Tennessee does, which they feel like they do, and so you can't rest on that. You have to come ready to play every game, and I would say that's not the case in football, but in basketball, that is definitely the case. You better come ready to play, and you can get beat any night, and you see that in the NCAA tournament every year. You see that as John Rothstein is tweeting out the epitome of brutality, losing the bye game every night this time of year. So that was clear in the loss to Colorado. I think you saw the team come back with the right mindset. Barnes talked about Sky Ziegler calling him after Sunday night once they got back and saying, what do I need to do? And he said, this is the guy we were used to seeing tonight. And this guy didn't put up big numbers on his stat sheet or anything, but he was just solid. And he came off the bench like Barnes said he would, and he gave Tennessee a spark. And he played well, and really everybody played well tonight for the Vols.
To that point, exactly right there, Rick Barnes said during his post-game press conference, hey, I tell our guys all the time, you don't have to score to affect the game. You obviously look at different other aspects of the game, whether it be rebounding, whether it just be schematically, whether it be assists, or whatever it is. And I think you can look at Zakai and really say that tonight. Also, I felt like Vescovy was another one that you could point to in that kind of way of saying, hey, you know what, what does this look like? About 8 points on the scoreboard, I think, 3 of 5 shooting, 2 of 3 from three-point range. But he still did a good bit to affect the game. And I think that's going to be a critical thing for this Tennessee team to really figure out here in these first couple early weeks, maybe even early months. Figure out that style as they continue to learn how to mesh. Another interesting thing from the press conference with Olivier Kamwa said that, you know what, I kind of almost feel like a newcomer to this team.
Yeah,
just simply because I did not necessarily play the last couple months. I did not in the season with the team because of that injury. I thought that was really interesting too. So plenty of fascinating things to watch for over these first few weeks of the season.
Definitely, and you mentioned Vescovy. He didn't have a huge statistical game from point standpoint. He hit 2 threes early in the game when Tennessee's offense was kind of faltering, gotten them going. I think sparked maybe just first 2 sparked an 18-2 run that kind of opened up the difference in the game, and Tennessee never looked back. And Jemima Meshach is the definition of a guy that can affect the game outside of scoring basketball.
Yes.
And we saw that last year as a freshman, and he just seems a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident in his role. on the offensive end, what to do, and I thought he had a lot of mature responses talking to the media tonight. He said, it would have been pretty arrogant of me to come into a team that has Santiago Vescovi and Kennedy Chandler and Josiah James and think I'm going to be the one taking all the shots.
Yeah.
And he has meshed with what he could do last year, which was be very intense, very good on the defensive end, a reliable guy that could get spot minutes. And now he's meshing that with kind of knowing what his role is offensively, knowing what he can do. He talked about knowing his spots. He knows that better. He's still learning about that.
Sure.
And I think for a guy that has had a lot of talk this preseason, Rick Barnes has called him the most improved player on this team. I think you've seen that maybe in some more subtle ways early in the season, and it's hard. 3 games in, it's hard to imagine he's not going to be a major role player on this team.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Meshack might have also had my favorite moment, or the funniest moment from the press conference. Reporter asked him, "Hey, what'd you see on that dunk?" He said, "I saw the rim."
Yeah.
There you go. That's pretty indicative right there. Anything else in the game today?
Josiah Jordan-James, I thought played really, really well. First game starting this year, starting at the 4-2 with Olivier Calmois at center. Euros Plasic not playing tonight, ankle injury. Rick Barnes says they think they'll have him back next week in the Bahamas. That's a little tentative. They thought about 2 weeks right after it happened on Sunday. So we'll see there. But yeah, James has been, to me, 3 games in the season has been by far Tennessee's best player. And it's kind of funny given the fact that he missed so much time, or at least was limited in so much time in the preseason. He's shot the ball really well. He's looked like the offensive guy we saw in the second half, or at least the last 6 weeks of last season. And then everything else defensively, his versatility, his ability to rebound at an elite level, that's all right where it left off, and really what James has had his entire Tennessee career. You
saw him right in the thick of things, especially to start the game there. I believe between him, Vescovi, and Kamwa, I think just about maybe 8-10 minutes into the game, something like that, fairly early in the game, they had 8, 7, and 6 points apiece. I believe they had 11 of Tennessee's first 15 shots. So you certainly saw the veteran leadership come out to start this game. And frankly, that's, I think, what we would expect after the loss, bounce back. Hey, you lean on your veterans a little bit to pick up the pace, set the tone for the game. And then obviously, as we saw, it ended up being a 31-point victory for the Vols.
Yeah, it did. And they set the tone well. They responded the way you would expect them to from a poor performance, and now they have a week off before they head down to the Bahamas and play 3 games in 3.
A little bit of technical difficulties, but that is wrapping us up on today. Hey, Tennessee gets the win over Florida Gulf Coast University by a score of 81-50 right here in Thompson Bowling Arena. Ryan, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us. This is Ryan Shumpert. You can follow him at rshump00 on Twitter. My name is Rick Butler. You can follow me at Rick_Butler as well. But of course, make sure you are following Rocky Top Insider on all the different social media links, and you're checking out RockyTopInsider.com each and every day. Hey, thanks so much for listening. You've been listening to the Rocky Top Insider Instant Reaction with Rick and Ryan. We'll see you back next week.